Howdy do. Now by now, this probably is not new information for you, in which case people probably won't be commenting and saying things like, wow, really, they're doing that? Because you've heard about this. But there was a post in the quick gameplay thoughts that they want to widen the jungle champion pool, and it reads like this. When we're digging into our results and follow-ups from this year's preseason, we were really struck by a problem in the jungle role that we'd never been able to fix. Throughout League's entire history, low elo players have preferred the jungle position least of all 5 positions, regardless of whether jungle is strong or weak relative to the other 4 positions. We think this will take a variety of changes to fix in the long term, but we want to also do some short-term work to improve jungle appeal. In 10.4, we're going to try adding a handful of champions that we, and you, love into the jungle pool. We'll be doing very focused changes that buff these champions' jungle clears, but leaves their lanes unchanged. Not all of these may ship, but here is our current list, meaning there could even be more in the future, but the list reads Garen, and they're also doing some light changes to make bruiser items more viable compared to attack speed builds. Diana, Zed, Talon, and Darius. And now today on the PvE, there are some of those changes we can see. For example, Garen has some changes, other changes in testing on the PvE, but his E, Judgment, new, now deals 150% damage to monsters. If you go down to Zed, who's also here right now, Contempt for the Weak, which is his passive, now deals 50 additional damage to monsters and has a cap of 200, 350, and 500 at levels 1, 7, and 17 against monsters. Now the reason why we're talking about this is a couple of reasons. One angle is as a Jinx player, as an AD carry player, what this might mean if these champions become meta because of this. And also, like, there was the joke that they're doing these changes because like maybe Garen's mecha skin didn't sell super well. As a joke that's funny, outside of a joke that's obviously ridiculous, they have other reasons for doing this. And it also makes me wonder if they're going to add other jungle champion changes to the pool as well, right? Like, that's their list so far, but in the future, what else could end up being in the jungle? Now for that first point, when it comes to, I guess in low elo, jungle is probably the least preferred role. I'd have to say in my experience, or even when I just get my placements, that every time I do my placements, no matter what, without fail, they manage to put me down there somewhere. And it's fine, I'm not complaining, but I am saying, in my experience, when you talk to people or hear what people say about not wanting to play jungle, it's mainly because of how the responsibility of the role plays out versus the lanes, right? Like, even if you're bad at the game or you're new to the game, lane phase has enough specifics that maybe you can still coast by or figure things out. You don't feel like you have to impact other parts of the map like a jungler does, right? Like a jungler has to clear camps and gank and do all these other things, especially the higher up the ladder you get. That role, I feel like, while it can be fun, especially once you have teammates that know what they're doing and you get better at the game, that might be the reason low elo shies away. Because you got to remember about low elo, it's not necessarily that players are bad, that's the only kind of players down there. It's also new players. And if League of Legends is like your first MOBA or something like that, lane phase is confusing enough with like you post the last hit and buy items and all this other stuff. So yeah, jungle probably is one of those things that's going to feel overwhelming, I guess is the word I'm looking for new players as well. Now relative to Jinx and stuff, I thought it'd be kind of funny to bring up the dragon change in 10.2, because again, it was a quality of life change, but it does reward you for last hitting. And the one thing I admittedly have not tried yet is actually taking Smite and seeing if that would count as a last hit for Jinx on the dragon to proc her passive. I should have done that a long time ago, honestly, because that's the thing about Nexus Blitz that I liked a lot too, was that you could double jungle, so even if your champion wasn't as good of a jungler, but you just really wanted to play your champion, you might be playing with another champion who either is a jungler or helps your jungle clears until it's all good. So I would actually play Jungle Jinx on that mode when it was around for fun, and as such, that could be something that would be interesting to talk about, because it would be another way to play a champion we all love in situations where maybe, obviously there's certain times where playing bot lane specifically is not maybe necessarily, let's just say, the greatest, certain metas and whatnot, but maybe you still want to play your favorite AD carry. And so the idea that they're doing this change, that could be the first of many steps of broadening champions' positions, I think it's kind of cool, but obviously it has some caveats, some cons potentially, right? Like, we're talking about Zed as a jungler. If you're Jinx, when you're playing against Zed and he ults you, now what you're supposed to do is drop your flame chompers behind you, like hold still, because Zed will always reappear behind you. And a lot of people like to run away and flash away and do stuff anyways. Back in the days when QSS could just cleanse it, there was that too. But that's what you're supposed to do as like the counterplay to Zed ulting you if you're Jinx specifically. Obviously if you're Vayne or Tristana, you can try knocking Zed away when he reappears too. And obviously when Zed's fed enough, it feels like he does so much damage you don't have that time. Like on paper it sounds great to stand there and kind of wait for him to reappear and all that, but in reality it doesn't always feel the greatest to be trying to wait for him to reappear, because it feels like he'll just do a bajillion damage if you wait before like the CC actually activates and stuns him, that you will die because his all-in will then kill you. But one of the issues could also be just the fact of how would you deal with this in the early game, because in laning phase, if you're up in lane, especially and a Zed comes around out of nowhere, like, and he tries to ult you and like he lays his shadow down and everything, especially because a lot of Zeds, and like at least the way I see it, they use their W to get in range to use their ultimate instead of trying to use their W to position it somewhere to add extra damage. If you're getting flanked or you're getting ganked in lane, right, he could drop the W behind you if you're far up enough in lane that he'll just do a bajillion damage once he reappears. They'll have a bunch of shurikens you have to dodge and things to worry about. And I'm not saying this to say this is a dumb change, don't do it. I'm saying as Jinx players, so how else would we counter this though? Like, what's the counterplay for a Zed or like a Talon too that's going to be coming out the jungle? Talon already kind of is in the jungle a little bit, and even when he's not, he's parkouring over walls from mid lane to come and kill us down in bottom lane too. So I think with Talon, it actually stays a little bit the same when it comes to counterplaying him from a Jinx perspective or an AD carry's perspective. Like as an AD carry player, if you're watching this and you made it this far, because most of my average view duration is about a minute, so there we go. What do you do to counterplay when like a Talon is coming for you in laning phase? When like he's missing from mid lane, he's roaming bot lane. Hopefully if you know it early enough, you can back up in lane, but obviously sometimes they'll just risk it and go for it because they have like a lot of damage. Do you like ask your support to pick a specific kind of support? For example, is there a certain support you like playing with a lot because of this, like say Tom Kinch, and maybe why he has some popularity in the North American LCS, for example, even though these champions aren't even in pro play yet? I can't even imagine Zed Jungle is going to make it into pro play. If Zed Jungle makes it into pro play, I would make a bet, but I have nothing I could honestly bet on because I have too much college work to do. But yeah, right, like I think Talon maybe stays the same. Garen, he's kind of kiteable as a juggernaut, that's it. I'm bringing up Zed specifically because a lot of AD carries have a love-hate relationship with Zed. On one hand, a lot of people hate Zed, but on the other hand, out of a lot of the assassins, he's the one that makes the most sense, and I'm using air quotes again, can't see them, but he makes the most sense about what he wants to do. When he ults you, where he's going to appear, his combo, things like that. So it's weird because he's like both hated, but also liked in the sense of, yeah, but he makes sense what he does, versus some other assassins that maybe they don't make as much sense, or they stealth for too long, or do some other stuff that Zed doesn't do. So he's in that unique spot as a jungler while I'm focusing on him this video, because if you know how to counterplay him already, you probably need to know how to do it from the jungle too, because he could W over a wall maybe now instead too. I also imagine his ganking pattern is going to be a lot like it is when he's just in the mid lane roaming bot though. And that's also something I want to retouch on that we kind of touched on with Talon already, is I don't necessarily think this is going to suddenly make Zed crazy coming at you from all these weird angles you can never predict before. I think it's just more down to how do you play safely against Zed already and then continue to play that safely going forwards. What I am excited about probably though, if I have to admit, is pro play. Because in pro play right now, if you're not watching pro play, a lot of the meta junglers are aggressive stuff like Lee Sin, Jarvan, Elise, things you can gank with early, especially fight for dragons early or fight for the Rift Herald early. And some of these champions I feel are pretty decent early game champions if they get going, right? We're talking about a world where now they get to go farm in the jungle and get jungle camps and secure stuff without really having to be contested, without being bullied in lane. The only thing they're going to have to worry about is their clears, which is specifically what is getting buffed, so hopefully they can stay healthy after doing jungle camps. Granted, power farming is not as powerful as it looked like it was going to be on paper in execution. You want to actually gank pretty often, and a Zed gank pre-6 and even post-6 without enough cooldown reduction probably isn't going to be all that powerful. I don't want to put my foot in my mouth, so to speak, and jinx it, but I don't think it's really going to be that effective. He's going to trying to gank 24/7 as a primarily melee range champion without his ultimate in the earlier game when laning phase really exists, right? But the jungle clears might be a bit easier for them now, so they can get to those levels faster and be in your lane a bit more than you probably want them to be in your lane. But in pro play, aggressive stuff seems to be what's reigning dominant, and these things can be aggressive, especially in the right hands. Like a TSM, they put Bjergsen on Zed and they swap him into the jungle and put someone else in the mid lane. So there you go, that could be an option. Dardoch suddenly playing mid lane Rumble for some reason this game because they wanted Zed and they wanted magic damage, so they had to put him on Rumble. And the way coordination and stuff works in pro play makes me wonder if some of these champions would actually work pretty well. Because the argument obviously with Juggernauts, for example, is the reason they don't necessarily see a lot of pro play is because you know how to play against them. You kite away from them when they're doing stuff. And Alawi goes in and ults, you just need to walk out the ultimate and just stay out the ultimate until it's done, right? Like, but in pro play, that's even magnified that much more because there's coordination, there's comms, there's a bunch of other stuff. There's players that have played together for so long now, they just have natural synergy. And solo queue, not necessarily so much. You're playing with strangers sometimes, if not most of the time, and that stuff maybe doesn't always come to you like it would in pro play positions. So, with that being said, what do you think of these jungle changes that are coming to certain champions? How do you think you'll play against them as an AD carry and even Jinx specifically as a Jinx channel? And what do you think about pro play if you do enjoy pro play, if these champions make it to pro play in the jungle? And then as a bonus, what other champions do you want to see make it to the jungle? I'm for one, I kind of actually like the concept of Jinx jungle, because what you do is you start blue, because then you have rocket spam, and rockets help you spam clear wolves and raptors very easily. Like, there's a whole path that's planned out I won't get into, and obviously that's probably more troll than it is legit and like a real ranked scenario, but I'll say that because it's a Jinx channel, it's my job to say Jinx. So thank you so much for watching this video. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, hit that bell notification, the actual subscribe button, and share this video around too. So, I know which video will be next, because life can have a lot of kinks. So until this time, take care, and GG, get jinxed. Thank you for watching, and enjoy pizza responsibly.